Well, hello everybody. We are on a call about using the major system, the major method. It is a wonderful, wonderful technique, the major system, and you can create a major system generator in your mind. Now, if you're new to this channel, please understand that we are live and there's a little bit of a wonderful, wonderful time delay sometimes, and there's the opportunity to use the chat box. And this is the first time that I'm trying to get the chat box up on the screen, so please forgive me if this is not exactly working properly, but say hello where you are in the world and what time it is, and let me know that it's working. Emerson's Coffee, Bike, and Rum Shop is here, so something's working. Let me know if you can hear me. This is something new, there may be more delay. Normally I use my iPhone to do YouTube Live, but we're trying something new to see what we can do with the technology and show you guys talking to each other on the screen. So thanks for saying hello, Emerson's, and always great to hear from you. Some great comments the other day. Really appreciated that. So something's wrong here. Not sure what's happening. Hello from Pennsylvania, 1833, time for work. Okay, well, I'm not sure why that it's telling me that this is not actually working, but I guess that it is working. Happy to see you, Pink Ribbon from Italy, and Netbox is here. Okay, well, thank you for letting me know that you're here, because for some reason the YouTube Live is showing that it's not working, but everybody's here talking away, so keep letting me know where you are in the world. Hit that thumbs up button, and let's talk about generating a memory system generator in your mind. It's a wonderful thing to do, and it allows you to, for example, read a fact in a book and then memorize that fact. And once you can do that, then you can recall it later and just do interesting memory tests throughout the day, because you can look back in that book and say, did what I tried to recall actually work? And you can use a major system or major method in order to do that. And you know, this is one of the trickiest things I find that people try to learn and they struggle with, because you're essentially doing a number of things in your mind at the same time, and you just need to develop the major system. You need to put a little bit of time into it and see how it works for you, because if you don't, then you'll never have it. And it's pretty simple, so we'll try to cover it today. It's the basis of so many things. It's the basis for memorizing playing cards, for example, for phone numbers, for birthdays, for everything in the world. And a lot of people, they search the internet for a mnemonic systems memory generator, and really the best one that you could ever have is the one that you have in your mind, that you're able to spontaneously develop images that you use to encode numbers in your mind so that you can recall them. So Kay MacGyver's here from the Gold Coast. Oh well, hello and welcome, good morning. It's a beautiful morning here in Brisbane. Thanks for saying hello, and by the way, if you're on the chat here, hit that thumbs up, let me know where you are and what you're doing, what you're thinking, and let's talk a little bit about your memory for numbers and how that's been going for you, and you know, what kind of struggles that you have with that, so that we can work with it. Now, the basis of the major method is to have a relationship between numbers and sounds. And let's take a step back from that. The basis of all memory is association. So what you want to be able to do is take information that you already know, and then when you encounter information that you don't know, create links between the two. That's the basis of all memory. So you already know the alphabet, you already know 0 to 9, and so you're going to make associations between those two things. It's like taking one free memory resource and taking another resource that's free that you have by virtue of being a human being in the liberal classical education system that we still have for all its faults. It does give you the alphabet, and it does give you the 0 to 9, and if you just bring those things together, you can actually use them to remember any number in the world and have a mnemonic system generator in your mind. So is that all making sense to everybody? Let me know in the chat if that sounds like a great basis upon which to begin. Because this is not just about being able to remember numbers. This is actually developing imaginative muscles. It's developing the muscles of association, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. It's the basis of memorizing lists of information, and if you get to something like Chinese, it's the basis of remembering what the correct tones are. So, for example, a phrase that I memorized, which is 别太担心, the tones there are 2, 4, and 1, 1. And I just use this mnemonic tool for that. So to remember 2, 4, I just make it a 24, and I see the Nar, which is the German word for fool, and I see John Hurt in particular. And then I see the toad from the old Bugs Bunny cartoons who's dancing and all the time and singing whenever the homeless people open the box. And toad is 11 in the major system. So a little bit concerned that this stream is not working. So if you're here, let me know before we go any further, because we could certainly try this with a different setup. But I'm not sure. In any case, barreling forward until everybody says hello here, I'm going to describe basically how the major works, and we'll get it immortalized up on the screen, because now we've got this chat up here, which hopefully will be useful. I'm just going to try and actually open my own YouTube and see if this is working before we invest too much in it. Oh yeah, it's working. It's just a little bit out of sync. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is I'm going to type in here how it works. So you want to have a relationship between 0 and a sound from the alphabet. And 0 then is going to, we're having some computer troubles here. Everything's super slow. 0 is an S or a C, and you can also have a Z. Now some people just use S or Z, and some people use a soft Z. It's got to be a soft Z generally for this to have a relationship between the S and the Z. But it's basically that's how it works. But I'm not sure why I can't type here in my own chat box. So it may be the nature of the internet connection not being strong enough. Footage is pausing regularly. Kay says, okay. Yeah, that's. I'm trying new software, so forgive me, everyone. But I was hoping to be able to chat in the type box with you, and that doesn't seem like it's going to be possible. So I am not sure what the best course of action is. But you know, one of the things that we need to do in life is try new things if we want to develop new skills. And this is one of those occasions. So forgive me. I'm going to see what happens if I move closer to the internet signal. It should be strong enough here, but apparently it is not. And without breaking the stream, just to experiment, just to learn something new about the nature of the internet, bear with me, everyone. I appreciate your patience. You can see a little bit of Brisbane here. Very, very nice place, of course. And we're going to try to get closer to the internet signal to see if that solves our problem. And then, of course, we can delete this madness later. But I appreciate you guys being with me for learning how to do better YouTube lives and have some texting on the screen. So a special thanks to K. MacGyver, which, well, we can think about how to memorize that name. We got MacGyver, who's pretty memorable already, right? And he's TV character. This is not exactly what I wanted. But now let's see if it's going to let me type here. Is it getting any better? Oh, now I can type. Okay, so I'm going to see 0 equals soft C, S, or Z. Let's see if that shows up on the screen here. Is everybody seeing that? I wonder what the time delay is like. I wonder if it lets you restart the stream to make things better. Huh, interesting. Okay, guys, thank you for your patience. I apologize again for all this inconvenience. Trying to learn how to do this. And it is not working properly at all. All right. Well, this may be a limitation of the system. But for those of you who are here, let's finish this so that you have it on the screen. And then I'll see what went wrong and try to do it again a different time. So, whoops. This is crazy. Maybe it's that my computer doesn't have enough resources to run this special software that lets you get stuff on the screen. That could be the problem. Well, one of the things that we can do in life is just be calm and cool and relaxed when things don't go the way that we're hoping, and persevere, push on through to the other side, as the Doors used to sing. And I'm going to see if I can get this in here for you. And technology. Who here, if you're able to hear this, is following along with the net neutrality stuff? I'm quite concerned about it recently, and one of the reasons why that I'm concerned about it is because people are basically maybe going to charge more for tools like we're using right now, and that is going to cause people to maybe reserve some of their bandwidth for less than useful information instead of educational information. Alright, so this chat thing is not ideal, but there we have the system showing up. If you're still here, let me know if you can see that, and we'll go through it. So 0 is a soft C or a Z, or it can be an S. So soft C, S, or a Z. And what that lets us do is really very quickly come up with some choices. So whenever we see a 0, we're able to have in mind that we're going to have a soft C or an S or a Z. Now, I tend to use the Z or the S more than the soft C, but it does certainly help to have in mind that you have these options. I'm going to try and get this better on the screen in a row. Thanks for being here. Inconvenient Politics, great to see you. We're having a bit of a mess because I'm trying something new, using some software to try and have the chat up on the screen so people could see each other, but it's created such a mess and so much delay that I don't really think it's working, but I'm going to persist. Well, I know it's not working. I'm going to persist a little bit just to experiment with it more. I appreciate everybody being here so I can learn how to use this software and even just determine if it's a software worth using. And unfortunately, we don't have a fair enough go today to determine that. And it could also be some limitations with my computer. It's getting kind of old, and I did all the updates and all that stuff, but it may have had its day in the sun. And for some reason, I'm not able to type in my own chat box anymore, and I don't know why. But again, apologies for this absolute mess. Good learning, though. Good learning. All right. Well, given that it continues not really working very well, to the point that it's coming on and offline, I think we had best abandon ship, maybe. Try a little bit longer here. Kind of curious what this is going to look like at the end. But this chat box is very limited. You can't, for example, it just does not work properly. But Rashid's here, says, "Hi Anthony, I've been a fan of you since a long time. Thank you for all your work." Well, thanks for being here, Rashid. Thanks for letting me know. Really appreciate it. And I apologize that this is not turning out to be the live session that I hoped it would be. Yeah, I wanted to get all in a row. Comments here, but yeah, so this software, just so you know, that I'm using is called OBS. It's apparently the software that the video gamers use to be able to have chats together, and I thought it would work real nice. But it's either very systems heavy, or I've done something wrong, or there's just not enough space. So Inconvenient Politics says, "Which major system are you using?" Because I use a slightly different one. Good question, Inconvenient Politics. Thanks for that. The reality is that I am using the word major system here, but I don't think there is a major system. There is a major method that every person uses to create their own system. And what I'm trying to reproduce in our chat box here is one of the most common ones that people use. And there's arguments in the history of people who talk about the history of memory techniques and so forth about where this came from. Was it Aimé Paris, or was it Major Beniowski? And there are other names that are mentioned in this long history and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's a method, and many people use it quite differently. The Russians, for example, tend to use a different layout than this. And so you can dive deep into all those theories. We can talk about those theories if they're of any interest. But at the end of the day, there we go, now it's letting me type again, mysteriously all of a sudden. At the end of the day, each person uses a method in order to create their own system. That's the basics of all this. That's how it works. And it's really, really important to understand that. So when one says, which major system are you using, it is always, the right answer is always the system you created based on the methods, based on the principles. That is the most accurate answer. Because no two people ever really use it quite exactly the same way. And then you want to think about how you're using it and for what end. So I like to be very, very flexible, and I often have, for my 00 to 99, for example, more than one character. And I can tell you from having gone and competed, that's not a really good competition strategy. In competition, you want fixity. You just want it to be the one thing and have that one thing work. And in my case, yeah, I did quite well in competition, but one of the problems that I had is that I didn't choose one approach. I chose a few at a time, and that didn't really work. So, but in real life, when you want to memorize facts and so forth, then you can actually gel a couple things together. And one of the examples that I wanted to raise today, based on 2 previous videos that I released over the last week, is you could combine a major system with a number shape system. And so a classic example is if you don't have a 000 to 999 system, for example, which for those who are watching this who don't know what that would mean, it's that you have a figure for every 2-digit or 3-digit for 000 to 999. And if you don't want to go to all that extent, you just want to have a 00 to 99, or you wanted to just develop the ability to look at numbers and then create images or words that ideally are connected to something that's visual, not necessarily that you have to see in your mind, but that you are able to feel, use all of your possible senses, which are not just sight, not just visualization, but auditory, kinesthetic, you've got just cognition itself, concepts, you've got the olfactory, you've got gustatory, and there may be more. A great way to simply remember this is to think of some cogs in a cave, right? So cogs in a cave, if you have C-O-G-K-A-V, then you have cog. Concepts, you have olfactory, and you have gustatory, C-O-G. And then for cave, K-A-V, you have kinesthetic, auditory, and visual. So you can remember all those different options. And the more you use, the more connections you'll make in your brain. So hopefully that's clear. But an example of bringing the major together with a shape number thing would be a number like 288. So I read in a book this morning, when I was all set up over there real nice, I was going to show you the book, but I was reading in a book that it would take you, if you were to go to Las Vegas and try to sleep in one new bed every night in a hotel, or in a series of hotels, then it would take 288 years. And to remember that number, 288, which, by all fairness is not really that complicated a number, but you would forget it if you didn't try to remember it. I just use major and a shape. So for me, the Navy and a particular G.I. Joe character shows up for 28. And then 8 is the shape of a snowman. So instead of having a character for 288, just very quickly, you could see a Navy guy in Las Vegas, in a hotel, punching a snowman, right? And maybe not just any snowman, but Frosty the Snowman. So that makes it very, very powerful. So you can combine the two. It just depends on what your purpose is and what your outcome is. I want to thank Inconvenient Politics, and also, I'm sorry I don't read Japanese characters, but the person with the Japanese characters for your comments on using OBS. I'll try and see about lowering the bitrate. I don't know if I can do that live. I would definitely try that for next time. And it's good to hear confirmation that it is a heavy software. Thanks, Inconvenient Politics, for mentioning about the bitrate thing. So, Danny, thanks for that question to Inconvenient Politics. How is your major system different? The system works in the same way, but with different letter number codes. Yeah, feel free to share what your letter codes are, if you like, in the chat here or in the discussion later. I may delete this video because it's been such a train wreck. But basically, I think that you can just decide what it is that's going to make the most sense for you. And one of the arguments is that there is a rhyme and there is a reason behind these choices that have been so popular and so used since at least Aimé Paris. And some people say that it has to do with like elements of where the tongue touches the mouth and in the palate and so forth, and how that connects with different parts of the brain. I don't know. I don't know that this has ever been accurately or sufficiently tested, but basically I just memorized this because someone said, hey, this is what is used, and I found it very, very simple. And if you go and watch the previous videos that we talked about, I gave some suggestions for some of them, and ultimately it's one of the best mental exercises that you can do, is to try to come up with your own suggestions on what you would use for mnemonic images, and understand that you can refine them over time. So it's just a matter of diving in. So 0, for example, you could go, if you wanted to memorize that it's a soft C, then you could see Cookie Monster making cookies very, very soft. And if you want to memorize that it's an S sound, then you can see a snake eating its own tail while it's snoring, which will give you the sense of it also possibly being a Z. So when you think about that, you think, okay, so now I know that it's those options, how am I going to use it? And so we take my 0, 0, for example, which 0, 0 actually comes up in life. I have Thomas Zaz, right? And Thomas Zaz was a figure in psychoanalysis and psychiatry and started the anti-psychiatry movement, I believe. He was a key figure in that, or he came up with the term anyway. And anyway, interesting guy. If you don't know who Thomas Zaz is and you want to use him, you can go look him up on Wikipedia. That would be a great thing. Well, before the net neutrality laws make Wikipedia more expensive, which I'm sure they are hoping to do. And by the way, if you're in the US, you still have time to go and contact your senators and so forth to make sure that you do all that you can to stop this ridiculous policy that will change and likely destroy all that is great about the internet as of today. So Eugene says, maybe should change my username. I live in Japan now, but I'm American. My real name is Eugene, just to make my communication easier. Yeah, it's actually, speaking of net neutrality, it's an interesting issue. It doesn't really have to do with numbers. Well, in a way it does. We have some interesting issues going on with what I would call linguistic de-skilling. So a lot of people, they use symbols in place of their name, or we were forced sometimes to add numbers to our usernames and so forth because our name is taken. And why I think this connects to the larger linguistic de-skilling is that we have a situation where so many changes are coming in how we use language and what language is all about for us. And some books that really are interesting about this, that talk about this, are things like Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. And I believe the author of The Real-Town Murders is Adam Roberts. And I read that recently, and it's all about just how we're losing aspects of our language because of compressed character code, character limits and all kinds of things, and using symbols and so forth. And maybe it's not de-skilling, maybe it's just evolving and getting better, but we're having problems communicating. People are making political decisions in 140 characters. Now they've doubled it, but in any case, it does have a lot to do with numbers. Our general intelligence has a lot to do with numbers. So Jaideep's here. Hello, Jaideep. Thanks for saying hello. I think we've got a pretty huge delay, but I'm glad that you're here, and thanks for chiming in. If you haven't hit thumbs up, please let me know you're engaged with that. Danny451 is asking, to inconvenient politics, using your system, what word would you use for 541 feral? Okay, so that is different because you're using 1 as L, I understand. And so you think of a feral dog. Okay, interesting. See, so you're not thinking of Will Ferrell, the actor, there, because you're spelling it with the spelling of his name. And feral dog is spelled differently than that. But it looks like you're using an F for 5 and still have the 4 for R, as in what I would say the majority use, and then an L for 1. So yeah, I mean, switch them around. There's no rule here. There's no law. And again, what the important thing is that you actually understand the principles that underlie the major, and then you develop fluency with the system you create based on the major. So you can be that generator. And then if you want to do it for cards, then that's a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. And Eugene says that I'm trying to build my system now to learn and memorize a deck of cards. Well, Eugene, let me say with all the kindness and love in my heart, the old Yoda line, do or do not. There is no try. I used to study hypnosis a lot. And in the study of hypnosis, I actually went and became a certified hypnotherapist. And they always used to catch you. Every time you said try, they would say, really, are you going to only try? And in a way, I really appreciate that they would catch all the students out for that. Because really, are we trying or are we doing? Right? And we can catch ourselves out with that and think what try really means. Try is kind of like an implied plan B, which means that if it doesn't work, I'm not going to do it. As opposed to, I am creating a major system for myself and I'm going to memorize a deck of cards. Even better, I'm going to have it done by 2 p.m. today, and I'm going to have the deck memorized in under 15 minutes in 2 days from now. And by putting more conditions on it, I think we can get a lot more success. But again, I say that with softness and kindness and no criticism whatsoever of the old Jedi Yoda line, do or do not, there is no try. And I think that that's a very powerful and useful thing for us to keep in mind, because it's really, really true, especially when it comes to that feeling of not being able to remember numbers or not having enough mental creativity or whatever the case may be. People have asked, and I received a recent question, about creativity exercises that I would recommend. Well, what could be more creative than learning something like the major and using it to memorize a deck of cards and using it to actually maybe take what you've done. I mean, you're living in Japan, so I don't know how tonal Japan is relative to Chinese, but in Chinese, the major and the cards have been incredible for being able to memorize the tones. So I shared earlier in this the tones for Bia, Tai, Danshi, right? And it's just memorized like that because there are already images in my 00 to 99, most of those being, well, not most of, but a vast majority of them being connected to playing cards. So having done that creates instant associations for other numbers right there. Good question from Danny for inconvenient politics. So in your system, frail could be another word for 541. Right, yeah, that sounds about right. But the thing with frail is it's kind of vague and abstract, whereas something like Will Ferrell is much more, even if you're not a visual person, it's still much more visual because it's a person that exists in the world that you can interact with and have interact with something else. This is the key point here that I think is lost on a lot of people, and then it's why they struggle, is that a lot of this relies on the ability of the images to interact with one another. So what can frail interact with? Can't interact with anything, really, because it's a concept. Now, concepts are powerful. We don't want to get rid of concepts. We want to use them in our mnemonic work. But frail is just not a thing that can interact with other things. It's a state. And it's not even a particularly strong state relative to the state of being frozen or the state of being on fire. Fragility is just kind of like a weak concept, I would say. So think about what could be an object there. I think feral is a great solution. Feral dog, to me, is just too vague because it's again a concept unless you have a specific feral dog in mind and relative to your own practice. So I'm not saying that it's too vague for inconvenient politics, but rather it would be too vague for me. So I would want to think about the pariah dog from Under the Volcano by Malcolm Lowry. But then that's a pariah dog, right? So why not save that for something that would be suitable for that, which would be like 94, at least 94. So different ways to think about these things. It's all relative to your mnemonic style, but I hope you see these as pointers for your own practice. So Eugene, again, Eugene, thanks for letting me know your name there so I can put something to those characters. Eugene says, I'm already making one using a PAO system, and from your videos, I would like to learn other things like vocab and other language. Excellent. Well, this is a great starter program, and many people start with some form of the major, and then they go to vocabulary from there. It's different tools, but similar tools at the same time. So any entrance, any portal of entry gives you strengths for the next level. And that's really powerful. By the way, those of you who are here, I really want to know, do you like having this chat up on the screen? Because learning how to use OBS better may have some pain involved, some more experiments, but I'd really like to know, is this useful to you? How do I do this? Is this useful to you to have on the screen? Let me know if that's useful for you, and if you like that. And let me know if you like this playlist I'm putting together for numbers, because I'm fascinated with numbers. I think it's one of the best things to do, and I want to get better at my own general numeracy. And being able to remember numbers is really, really great. And being able, like, just stupid facts sometimes are cool to remember. Like, it would take 288 days to sleep in one bed per night in Las Vegas hotels. Like, I like that number was actually reported in a study or in an article, and like, that's just cool to me, that you can actually just think, okay, so it's that Navy character from G.I. Joe, and he's punching a snowman, so it was 288. Or the other one I memorized from my book of trivia facts was that 7 of American presidents were born in log cabins. And, you know, it's just a simple thing of seeing Abraham Lincoln in a log cabin covered by a sack, because sack is what I have for 07. So it's just very convenient. And then when it comes to page numbers, you know, you might not remember it in 30 years what page you stopped at, but in case you wanted to remember a page number, well, you've just got this cool strategy that lets you memorize page numbers for the short term or the long term. Inconvenient Politics says, the way I memorize cards is spades begins with an S, then clubs begins with C, diamonds begins with D, and hearts begin with H, and then use the major method to create an image. 4 of clubs would be a ram. Okay, so my ram is King of Diamonds, and there's a reason for that. And it's not just any ram, it's a Dodge Ram, like a truck. And that lets me have that Dodge Ram drive into whatever the next card is. Or the previous card can be jumping into the Dodge Ram that's going to be driving into the next thing. And it can be falling off a cliff, it can be whatever. So I use Ram as well, but it just happens to be for a different card. So my 4 of clubs is actually lyre, like the actual guitar, L-Y-R-E. It's not really a guitar, but that is basically always being smashed on someone's head or whatever from like a rock and roll video. Pete Townsend is often doing it as well. He's sort of associated in there. Oh, Disturb Reality has a great video on memorizing cards. I haven't seen a video from Disturb Reality for a long time, but I like that guy's channel. He does cool stuff. Danny says, I read Harry Rain's memory book years ago and found he was a magician too. That's how I got into magic. Yeah, Harry's great. I've spoken with him. My talk with him is in the master class as a little bonus for people. He gave me some wonderful advice, and I followed it many, many times. And he's a great guy. Really, really nice guy. So thanks, Inconvenient Politics, for asking about the chat. I think the chat is more useful for people watching the video after the live stream so they can see what people are saying, what you're talking about. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to persist and see if I can figure this out better. I don't know how healthy the stream is now, and maybe there's a way to edit this video later. So it's not so chaotic in the beginning, but for anybody who did want to watch it, maybe it should just stay there so they can see what it's like. You know, we don't have... one of the cool things I like about the live is you see people persisting and demonstrating what it takes to get things done in the world. We have as with memory techniques, we have a kind of illusion that things are easier than they seem to be, and they are easy if you just keep going and you find your way in and you move and you don't stop and you don't let little inconveniences get in your way. So maybe it shall stand for that reason alone. Thanks, Inconvenient Politics, for letting me know that it's useful. Barry's here. Hi, Barry. Thanks for this comment. Until last week, I also used to do H for hearts, etc., but now I'm converting to Anthony's system. That way I share the words for HD and 3/8, and I can easily add the 2 jokers. Yeah, being able to add the jokers is awesome. And for me, what attracted me to having that particular signature is that it actually just makes, you can just see so many of the cards at a glance, and it's also very helpful just in terms of your 00 to 99. So Barry, I don't know if you also have done a 00 to 99, but it just gives you a columnar effect, if that's a word, columnar effect. It's very, very, very powerful. And I really like it. I really like it, and I would apply it beyond that as well. So this is Eugene to Inconvenient Politics. I've tried, but I find it very hard to connect with words that I come up with. I find that words that I could connect to are better. Yeah, connecting is everything. That's why my latest book is called The Memory Connection. It's become more and more clear to me how much it's not just a connection, but as many connections as you can get. So what I mean by that is that often one connection isn't enough, and that's why when we're picking our images, like the concept of a Ram or a Dodge Ram truck, and particularly the one that my dad used to own, which was kind of maroon color, not really maroon, but anyway, it's a specific one, right? And probably every single one of us can dig a little bit deeper if we're going to use the Ram for whatever card we're going to use it for, or for whatever number we're going to use it for. The more specific you can get, the more profound it's going to be, both in terms of remembering what that association is, and then when you use it. Because there are multiple connections to it. It's not that my dad had a Dodge Ram once upon a time for 5 seconds. He had it for years. And I learned how to drive on it, and I drove it. And I drove with it with my brother being the driver, and with my dad. We went on multiple adventures, and so on and so forth. So it's got multiple connections. Much more powerful. Will Ferrell, as opposed to a feral dog concept. Multiple movies, hours spent with him, Saturday Night Live, and so forth. So the more that you have connections with things, the more powerful they're going to be. Unless you're willing to put in the time and effort to develop more connections, which you can be doing all the time. That's why watching movies as much as you can with thinking about the movies as memory tools is so powerful. That's why reading novels, thinking about the novels as memory tools is so powerful. Everything can be multiple connections. You can create multiple connections. So what did I do when I finished reading Ernest Cline's Ready Player One? I went and looked for an interview with him so I can start creating multiple connections. What's his other books? Turns out he's a spoken word poet. So now there's like many more things to think about there, many more tools. Then I thought, oh, there's some kind of, well, actually I was thinking about it right away because Sorrento, I think is the bad guy's name, 655321. And I thought, oh, there's a puzzle in this game for sure, because 655321 is the number of Alex in Clockwork Orange. And then if you look at the cover of at least the edition I have of Ready Player One, the font seems to be the Clockwork Orange font. So it's just amazing how you can push for more connection, and there are more connections there always. So Barry says, yes, my 0 to 99 is already in place. Okay, cool, very cool. Are you doing like 00 to 99? So what I mean there is like 00 is a character, 01 is a character, 02 is a character, 03 is up to 09, so that they actually, and this would be starting with a soft Z or an S or a Z, so that you're able to develop these images. So it's just not 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. I think that's much more powerful. Eugene says some numbers are harder to use because the limit on the letter I have to use. Say more about that, Eugene. Maybe we can give you some suggestions or help with that. In any case, the answer is almost always in practice, matched by study. So further study is really, really powerful and useful. I like to continue to study, continue to read. I read a memory book, at least one new memory book every month, to keep my chops going, keep my thoughts going, keep my practice sharp, and continue to practice, continue to use them. It's really, really powerful. So it's great that you're here exploring, and keep that up, because it's powerful to do so. Very, very powerful to do so. I really just don't know why this connection is not so strong. OBS being a hog doesn't seem like a total explanation, but Jaideep asks, it is necessary, oh, is that a question or a statement? It is necessary to go through all the 2-digit numbers. I would, because it's worth it. So that way, when you just have a birth date, right? Everybody's day of birth is going to be 2-digit numbers. And so I have a friend, October 25th. So I just see him with a pumpkin and a huge nail, not just any nail, but a nail I won't mention. Bam! And it helps. And you know, it's just that simple. So if you didn't have an image for that, it wouldn't be that fast. You'd have to make something fresh. If you have to make something fresh, you're more prone to making mistakes. That's basically what it comes down to. And if you have numbers where you change over time and you evolve over time, I'd suggest that you keep whatever it is you originally had, because you can have it be stronger and have more options. So, for example, when I'm advising you guys, don't use concepts. I'm advising you from experience, because my 9 of clubs used to be leap. And it worked. It worked really great, fine. But it's not nearly as strong as Jennifer Lopez. But since leap was already there, what could be stronger than a leaping Jennifer Lopez, right? Now, technically, Lopez suggests that there would be a 0 at the end. Well, it doesn't really have to be a barrier, but she could be both numbers also. Or she could be just one of those numbers when she's only leaping, which is 59, and she could be 590 when she's not, or she's just Jennifer Lopez when she's not, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter, but she can be both, basically. It just depends on what your purpose is and so forth. But for cards, she works real well for the 9 of clubs, and she works really well when she's leaping, and often I call upon her to leap. Also, she can be loping, and there's also an opportunity to connect her with the something like lupus, or the werewolf sensibility there from that. So really ultimate, endless options. Barry says, I have both 0, 1, 2, 3, and 0, 0. Oh, wow, that's cool. Very, very cool. I see. Yeah, well, I mean, we had talked about it in the previous video, and there's videos about connecting with shapes, which is a good way to have single digits. So 8 can be a snowman, and 4 can be a sailboat, and so on and so on. So that is a way of having multiples, and beautiful, beautiful. Eugene said, if I could learn more vocab, I can use it. Definitely. Well, there's vocab in abundance to learn, so do enjoy that. I love learning new vocabulary. Don't spend enough time doing it, and it's just amazing to me, all the English words that I still don't know. I often joke that I'm not even fluent in English, and when you think about it, who is? No one's fluent in their mother tongue. There's just so many words left to learn. Shaideep says, I have a 0 to 99 all written numbers, not my own. Should I adopt them as mine? Well, you got to make them your own, right? So if you find ideas from other people, there's nothing wrong with using them. Like if you want to use Jennifer Lopez for 59, go ahead. If you want to use her for 590, go ahead. You have my blessing. But she's got to mean something to you, right? And so I think, and speaking of multiple connections, when I finally thought, yeah, leap is not good enough, then I thought Jennifer Lopez works really well, but then I've got to think like, okay, who is Jennifer Lopez really? And I think about the movies that I've seen her in. I think about the music that I'm familiar with. Think about some of the images and try to conjure as many images of her as possible so that I really actually know what it is that I'm using here. So make it your own. And also just having discussions like these make these things much more our own. They embed them deeper in our system. So if you were to write out and type out everything that you're using, you'll make more discoveries. You'll make more connections as you make more discoveries. If you haven't heard my interview with Florian Delay, immediately as we were talking, I came up with a better idea for 84. And I was just amazed that I never thought about it before, but it was one of those examples. And it's not that long ago where I just had a generic thing, which I was able to turn into something much more powerful. And then it becomes a much more powerful tool also in that particular case, and then it makes me think about how to strengthen all the other numbers. So Eugene says, I haven't gone to college and lived out of the US, so my vocab is pretty much the same when I was in high school. Well, college is not the be-all and the end-all. I was very fortunate that I was able to go, and also being a reader, encountered lots of vocabulary, but it's never too late, and there's just an abundance of opportunity to use the tools online that are there for us, and we can really hop on and develop them. But I would say what matters is what you get in your head so that you don't have to go to the tools. You want to be prepared like the samurai who's able to execute one last move even with his head cut off. And so it's great to go to the tools, but you also want to have that memory system generator in your head, and you want to strive for that so that you're able to operate unassisted. Because, yeah, again, I don't want to make this a political discussion, but I do need to bring it back to this whole thing about net neutrality right now. And it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary what can be taken away, especially since I was just reading Ready Player One and the Real-Time Murders, and just these images of the future are really not so futuristic. They're what we're struggling with right now, which is the nature of our freedom to develop thought, to develop meaningful thought, depths of thinking, depths of attention span, depths of intelligence that really do require frames. They require space in which to think. And so when all these character counts are compressing how many words we're allowed to use to describe our problems, I've got website issues, I got to email Google, and I only have 200 characters to describe a problem on my website or whatever. Like, are you kidding? Is this exercise in writing poetry or what? It's throttling human communication. And when you do that, it also throttles the space in which we think. Will Self has some cool videos where he talks a lot about, well, he's referring to Marshall McLuhan, but he talks about the Gutenberg Mind and how a certain generation may have had more voluminous thought because they were reading more novels and reading more book-length stuff, and so their thoughts are more spacious. And you may be losing that. And he's first to point out that it actually may be a good thing that people are thinking smaller thoughts in smaller spaces. At the end of the day, I don't really know. Certainly not when it comes to numbers, because numbers are very big things indeed. And we want to have the kind of imagination that's able to embrace and encompass lots and lots of numbers. Big, fat, healthy reams of numbers, as much numbers as possible. So I hope that gives you some things to think about. It's saying that my stream health is low again. I don't know if you guys are still with me or not, but I'm really enjoying this discussion. I thank you for the interaction, and really cool to have this kind of starting to flow and work with the discussion on the screen, so keep it coming. To review, we have been talking about the issue of creating a mnemonic generator system in our head, and with respect to the major system, and there's some videos that are in other parts of this playlist. I think I've decided I'm pretty much going to keep this, even though it had a rough start. Well, basically, one of the things you want to do is develop the major system for yourself, understand the methods, and basically it's having some sort of means of creating words from numbers based on a phonetic number system. And that means having a letter, a consonant, ideally, for each and every number from 0 to 9. And you can also have a shape for each and every number from 0 to 9, ideally not a abstract shape, because numbers are already abstract shapes, but something that sort of looks the same. So like a sailboat for 4 and a snowman for 8. So that's really, really helpful for just popping down single digits. And of course, you can also have the major help you just add on a single digit image. And some people would think, well, won't that be confusing? Won't that be too much to juggle and so forth? And the reality is, no, it won't. Rarely will it be too much to juggle. You've just got to dive in and try and give it a chance and see what can work for you so that you're able to develop these skills for yourself and dive in. It's one of the best investments you will ever make, and I'm very, very confident that you will be glad that you did. So if you haven't already learned it and you'd like to have this written on the screen, I have a post on my site that has the major method described, and you can check that out. It's magneticmemoryMethod.com/major-method. And of course, if you want to be able to store all of these pieces of information and you haven't taken it before, you can grab a free memory kit at magneticmemorymethod.com at magneticmemorymethod.com/YT. And I imagine that many people here have already taken that, but in case not, please avail yourself of that, and it's going to help you create a memory palace. And also, if you're not subscribed to this channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, let me know if you're engaged and you're enjoying this stuff. Good to know that even with some challenges, we can make these live sessions work, and I look forward to putting out more. In any case, if there are any more comments or questions about the major, let me know, and let me know generally if you have any more things to contribute or ideas. I really appreciate hearing from you all with your different experiences using it, and ultimately that is something that's going to serve you really well as you go into the future. And I really hope to hear more about what you do with it in the future, because there's just too many applications to name. Really, there's so many wonderful ways that it can be used, and really fascinated by how it just seems to present more and more uses as time goes on. Everything from birthdays to, the dates of movies, and then thinking about linking multiple names of movies to a year. So that's really powerful to do, especially if you do film studies, as I do. So that's a lot of fun. And yeah, so dive into this technique if you haven't used it before. I apologize again for the rough start with this particular stream, but I appreciate everybody who engaged. And if you are watching this in the future and you have a question or a comment, leave it down in the discussion below. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that thumbs up. And I'm going to see if we can do better next time. Try and see about reducing the weight of this program somehow, and making sure that the bit rate is a little bit lower so it streams a bit faster. We should have the strongest connection available in the whole city here, but it does not seem to have been as strong as it should be today. So let's see here. Eugene says, I just quit my job and currently learning at edX. I have 1 year paid vacation. I learned from your videos too, trying to accelerate my learning process. Excellent, excellent. And yeah, that's great. I mean, if you can put time into study, do it. Put all the time in the world that you can. I had a professor who really inspired me once upon a time. This was when I was doing my first MA, and for some reason we were at one of these meetings, and my MA supervisor, a really great professor named Nikita Larry, he asked another professor, Susie Young, who's a film professor, and he said, what would you do if you won the lottery? She said, oh, I'd go back to university in a flash. And I've often thought about that. And these days you can go to university and it's amazing. It's amazing what's possible with the technology, and it's amazing what's possible when you can just be a self-directed learner. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And I often think, if I were to win the lottery, why would I go to a university? And one of the reasons to go to a university would be to have some guidance and direction from an expert who has put together a syllabus so that I can just look at the syllabus and say, okay, these are the things I'm going to read. I'm going to submit to this course of study. And so that's one of the sort of things that we're missing a little bit. Is it's great that things like edX and so forth exist and all kinds of things, but we get a kind of enormity of potential, and no one seems to be able to cover it with a classic model in the sense that there used to be. And that can be a very good thing, but it can be a challenge as well, trying to figure things out. So that's what the masterclass is all about, putting together a syllabus based on just what I've accomplished in language learning, what I've accomplished with numbers in my own practice, and now how that number practice laid the groundwork for Chinese tones and just being able to remember them in phrases. And that lets you hit the ground running when you get to practicing the speaking part of the language, and you make much less mistakes, and it's just much more memorable, and it's a lot more fun as a result. Natural flows here. Hallo Anthony, Grüße aus Deutschland. Ah, well. Schön, dass du hier bist. Vielen, vielen Dank. Really great to see familiar faces. We have been going for a while now. I had a rough beginning on this particular live, and just starting to go from numbers to a general discussion of education in the 21st century. And of course, these memory techniques are only going to get more and more important as access to knowledge grows, because memory techniques are a great way of actually, even in the absence of a good syllabus from an expert, they're going to help you capture more of what you learn, and the more chaotic things become and the more dispersed and wild they become, the more you're going to need to be able to capture these bits and fragments and create a coherent picture in your own mind. So that's a huge part of it. And I think it's the most exciting situation to be in the world. And it's only getting more and more exciting, even if it comes with its challenges. And I think that having a solid number practice, number technique is a huge part of making sure that you're able to succeed. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, putting together the playlist on numbers and hoping to attract more people to these tools. And I appreciate everybody who has been here in order to help me do that. And so yeah, thumbs up if you like this, and thanks for all the participation. Natural flow, how is your major for yourself? Do you use it? What struggles did you have in the past or have now with it? And how good are you at remembering numbers? That would be good to know. One of the big topics to talk about as we wind down is to think about numbers in the context of music, because it could give you a huge advantage. Music is largely mathematical. It's got a lot of numbers involved, whether you're memorizing the hertz of notes or you're memorizing where on a fretted instrument something is, or where on the keyboard it is, or which keys it is. You can think about that numerically and use the tools to create images that will help you memorize different kinds, different levels of information about music, and also what notes belong where. So super, super powerful. Every reason under the sun exists to get the major method working for yourself, and to have at least a 2-digit 00 to 99. Some people call this a PAO. I don't know if you necessarily need to have person, action, object in every single one, but certainly keep in mind the idea of object or person having the capability to do a real action. That, I think, is going to make the biggest difference for a lot of people, and make it the most fun, because it's really what it comes down to is making sure that using the tools are fun and learning is fun. All right, so that's it for this session. Thanks everybody for making a rough start a huge success. Really appreciate you all being here. And now I just got to figure out how to stop this stream and move on to the next big project. So if you haven't been to Magnetic Memory Method before, come and check out the most recent post and the podcast, which was about memory techniques around the world. We featured 3 in particular, and It is going to be continued in a part 2 as we go into other parts of the world, including ninjas. Did you know ninjas use memory techniques? That's a great discovery. Before we go here, Natural Flow says, at the moment, I have a natural 57 numbers using NBA basketball players, which was easy, but beyond 57 it gets thin. All right, well, that's a great basis to continue, and cool idea using basketball players. That is one I hadn't thought of before, but yeah, sports teams are full of numbers, and you could use that as a solid basis if you wanted that kind of focus. And Natural Flow says, I play cards a lot and I'm thinking about adding objects to the 52 card deck images. Yeah, that is definitely something to do, especially for something that we'll be talking about in the future, actually, because I got a cool technique for knowing which cards are out, and it is going to be powerful for people. So we'll pick that up on a future call, but for now, thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate it, and check out that recent podcast if you haven't already, and everything's written there for you about the memory techniques around the world. Part 2 coming up later this week. Really excited. And future topics on the podcast, well, I've got a whole program laid out. Let me know what you'd like to hear on the podcast, and we'll see what we can do. For now, this is something that has been a great delight and a great pleasure. I appreciate everybody for being here. Eugene says, having a similar problem with not enough action words. Well, isolate a bunch of verbs, get them down on a piece of paper, write as many as you can, and start drilling yourself, seeing your characters doing those actions. So if you take Jennifer Lopez, for example, that we talked about already, so Jennifer spitting, Jennifer kicking, Jennifer jumping, Jennifer punching, Jennifer laughing, Jennifer, etc., etc.